I love hearing birth stories, and I think it's so crazy that women have been doing this for so long and we have been welcoming children into the world, but every birth story is so unique and has their own personal spin on it. This interview was really fun to reflect on because I recorded this also before I had my second. So it's been cool to look back and listen and just see the changes that have happened in my own life. I have Natalie here today, who is an amazing mother to two beautiful girls. She decided years before she even knew that she was a mother that she wanted to do a home birth and that the home births intrigued her. For me personally, I have chosen to have my births in a hospital and have had very positive experiences. But I was curious to know what home births or births outside of a hospital were like. I know that other people are also interested in what it's like as well. I'm hoping to continue to share more birth stories in all different phases, whether that's in the hospital or in a birthing center or at home. I think the more knowledge we have is just amazing so that we can all grow together and learn a new thing. So I'm excited to share Natalie's experience and for others who may be curious too. Natalie was gracious enough to share her personal story about her births and what the process was like. I hope you all enjoy it as much as I did. Welcome to Grow Wild. I'm your host, Kaylee, and I'm excited to spotlight moms in all phases of life and build community in our own experiences. Let's grow together in this wild journey of motherhood. I am so excited for this interview. I have the beautiful Natalie here with me today. I'm so excited to have you on, Natalie.
Hello, hello. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be so much fun. Natalie was, I
Yeah,
think, one of the first people I met here in Riverside, and I hadn't even
yeah,
had it yet. And I don't know, I'm
yeah.
just so grateful that I have you as a mom friend, even
I
before
know.
I had it
I
on Earth, I
know.
guess.
Isn't that special? How fun is that? It's crazy how much time has flied by too
I know.
when
And
you
now
think
you have
about
a
it.
second.
I
I'm about
know.
to have a second. It's
I
crazy.
had just had Sophie, I think, when we first met, and yeah, you were
hmm
pregnant. Yeah, exactly. And I'm already on my second. You're already on your second. We're flying through this.
I know. It's so crazy.
I love it.
I
So
am
special.
really excited for this interview because I feel like one, I love birth stories. I think they're beautiful and so unique and just so empowering. So I'm really
Mhm.
grateful that you are sharing yours.
Yeah, I'm so excited too. I feel like it's a topic that is super fun and intriguing for people. And so it was exciting to share, to have the opportunity to share. So I'm excited. Okay.
Before we get into your birth stories, I would
Mhm.
love to hear for others to hear what you and your husband do for work and if that had any influence in choosing to do a home birth or how did it help you feel more confident in doing a home birth?
Yeah. My husband actually works for San Bernardino County Fire. And so he works for the fire department. He's a paramedic. And for him, I feel like he was very fascinated when I brought up the whole idea of even doing a home birth to him. So I kind of brought it to him. And it was very foreign to him. I think it would be for honestly any husband, but especially for him since he is in the medical field. And he's had a lot of experiences with birth. He's actually delivered a couple of babies in his career. So for him, he was like, "Hey, what is this about?" So, and he's a research kind of guy, so I felt like it was important for him to see, statistics and facts and kind of really sit with the idea before fully deciding like he's all for it. And I think it wasn't until we did like the interview with the midwife and he was able to ask the questions that he felt the most comfortable and moving forward. For me, I had always thought about having a home birth probably since high school. I remember watching vividly like a black and white video of a home birth, and I think it was a friend of a friend. I can't remember who it was of their sister, older sister, having a home birth, and it was just so beautiful and empowering. And I always thought I want to do that one day. Well, I ended up getting into the medical field. I'm an X-ray tech, and so around a lot of babies, around a lot of families and emergencies, and I worked in a pediatric hospital for a little while, so I had my fair share of working with littles. Nothing really scared me or kept me from wanting to pursue that and feeling that like interest in having a home birth. So I kind of followed that intuition to like lean into that feeling of like this is what I want to do. And yeah, I think that it honestly made me feel more knowledgeable and aware. And it's kind of like one of those things where it's like I don't want to, sometimes you're too close to the hospital experience when you're in the hospital, when you work in the hospital. I feel like you're sometimes too close to it and seeing agendas and stuff like that with certain doctors and having that, kind of bad taste in your mouth and that sort of thing. So I always felt like I could, hold my own when it came to pushback and all that stuff. I just feel like it was one of those things where I wanted to lean into that intuition. And it didn't really necessarily have any, like what I did for a living didn't really necessarily have a reason to, they didn't really weigh that much on it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think it was one of those things where I feel like because of what I did for a living, it kind of gave me like that feeling like I can do this, on my own. And like I said, I had wanted to lean into the intuition of, wanting to explore the opportunity to do home birth.
I think that's really powerful what you said about just leaning into your intuition, because I think that's part of being a mom. Like,
Mhm.
you just have to trust, like, you know what's best for your body, you know what's best for your
Yeah.
baby, and obviously, like, other things come into play.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have learned to be more in tune with myself
Mhm.
since having a child to,
Mhm.
like, know what my body needs truly. Like,
Yeah.
it's been so interesting to, like, learn about what my body's doing, how it is able to have a baby, how it's able to grow a baby. Like, a lot of that has been really empowering in an
Mhm.
aspect I really wasn't expecting to go through, which is kinda silly when you think about it, because 'cause you're like, you should know what's going on with your body, but, um, it's
Yeah.
been so empowering to learn more.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where you don't really know until you're in it. You have girlfriends that, or even yourself, like when you're thinking about like, oh, what it'll be like when I'm pregnant, and you kind of have no idea. Like there's nothing that's prepares you for that feeling of like a life inside of you, and just like your body isn't your own anymore. And I feel like when you're in that place and you're feeling all these feelings and the hormones and all the things, like you have to just do what brings you the most peace and kind of list like, erase the outside noise a little bit and kind of go with your gut. I had a lot of pushback from family, that was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure if this is safe?" And I was nervous about that. But I like for me and Nick, and Nick really when once we did the interview, he felt really like okay with it and at peace with it and was like, "No, I think that this is safe. I think we can do this." And because of what he did for a living, I felt like he was in the most, you know, he was able to kind of have perspective, and he was able to be like the calm in those moments of me feeling like, "Are we sure we can do this?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll be there. Don't worry. I'll catch the baby if I have to." So I always felt safe. I felt like that was super important, for me to feel safe with him there too.
I feel like that would be way reassuring to know that your, like, husband's a paramedic, he's handled this, he's delivered babies before.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole nother aspect that goes into play with you where I'm like, "Oh, that's really nice," like, to have just that
Convenient.
extra layer of, like, comfort. That's really great.
Yeah.
Um, so my goal with these birth story episodes is to share just, like, different ways women are able to have children. And like you said, I feel like home births are definitely, they're talked about more, but when you had your first, like, they weren't as talked about, and people definitely had a lot of pushback. But I thought we'd first start out with the research you did before deciding to have a home birth. What were the things that you wanted to know prior to starting the process?
Sorry if you hear my 7-month-old trying to get down for bed. So this is real life. So, you never know.
You're
Um,
all good.
so for research wise, I asked a lot of girlfriends that I knew, or not a lot, because at the time there was not a lot actually. But now I think if you were to do it, or if, one of my girlfriends were to look into it, I feel like they'd have a lot of moms to be able to reach out to, which is so, so helpful. Because at the time when I was doing research and asking friends questions and stuff like that, I didn't have that ability to have friends to reach out to for help. or for, their opinions or what, their perspectives, if they enjoyed their home birth or not. So at the time, I didn't really have anybody to reach out to. So I picked and choosed people that I knew that did it, and some one girl was out of the state. I went to high school with her, but she like lived out of state at the time, so like I reached out to her. So it was really hard to find like immediate friends to give genuine opinions, but I just trusted again my instinct to uh dive more into this and like get answers that I needed and clarity. So I reached out to her, and she had a beautiful story and a beautiful home birth, and it was great to hear. She reached out, or she pointed me in the direction, I guess I should say, to who I needed to reach out to out here in terms of a midwifery. And that's kind of when I started to look into midwives. But along with that, before I started interviewing and doing all that side of things, I don't know if you ever heard, but it's called The Business of Being Born. I highly recommend it, even if you're not even considering a home birth, but just to kind of have perspective and an idea of like what it's basically a documentary about modern medicine and the way that the hospital handles childbirth. And there's so many, and I like it because it does a lot of like statistics versus like opinions versus like facts. And I actually wrote down a couple because I thought they were kind of intriguing. But like 70 to 80% of births, like there's midwives present in other countries. Like that percentage is like 70 to 80%. Whereas in the United States, it's like less than 20%. And midwives, there's statistics about them being, less episiotomies, less chances of having a cesarean, and all of those things. And by all means, this is not anything to do with an emergency C-section. This is more of just like from a doctor's perspective of pushing a C-section. So there's a lot of like, so I watched that documentary and I felt like it was really eye-opening and kind of intriguing and fascinating to, hear. Um, and then from there, I just started to research midwives around me. And again, I reached out to a couple of girls that I knew that had birth stories, and some of them are, home birth stories, but some of them, was like, oh, mine I had to be a transfer. And it was good to hear that because again, everybody's birth story is different, and you can imagine this beautiful wonderful birth, and even in a hospital, like you can imagine this beautiful wonderful blissful birth, and it doesn't necessarily turn out that way. So I feel like it was important for me to not be naive and to be open to seeing both sides of what it would be like. And I feel like if you're leaning into that and you're going into it knowing that it isn't going to necessarily happen the exact way that you want it to, I feel like your body is even more at peace about it, and your mind is too. Because if you imagine, everything being perfect and some small little thing goes wrong, like how hard that would be, mentally on you. So I really leaned into the fact that it does might not necessarily be perfect, but I was open to, um, you know, the enjoyment of having my own autonomy, I guess would be the word, right? So just to be able to decide what I want for myself and what I want for my baby without feeling pressured. And I'm a people pleaser. I like when people, it's hard for me to not do, I don't know how to explain it, but I just like to make people feel better and make people happy. And like it makes me feel uncomfortable when I give pressure on somebody else, and I'm like, that's okay, never mind, it's fine. So my husband was worried about that. In general with, giving birth, he's like, how are you gonna, and I'm like, I know you're right. I'm so nervous. I'd be so nervous to, push back. And so it was important for me to feel safe in my space, and I feel like that was important for me.
It's so hard, especially with your first, to like truly know what you're going to go through just because, I mean, it's also new. And I feel like just knowing what you need, like having a safe space, knowing
Mhm.
what you need. And once again, it's so hard to know what you're going to need,
Right.
but just at least like understanding for you, like I'm a people pleaser. So I could see these scenarios being really challenging, or
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
want to be able to control more of what I have going on.
Mhm.
Um, which I think is so great and just something that I think can go for any way you decide to have birth,
Right.
or like you
Mhm.
choose to deliver your child. Is
Yeah.
just knowing like, okay, what can I do to best help myself, but also understand there's going to be things that are out of your control
Mhm.
too. Like
Exactly.
So I think that's really, I don't know, there's so many things. Birth is crazy.
It is insane, and it's funny because I think about how I was with my first home birth, and then I think about my second home birth, and you just know so much more, and it's hard to, when you reflect, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could go back and tell that, first-time mom myself, my past self when I was a new mom or pregnant with my first, and just tell her to take a breath and tell her that's gonna be okay, and that not everything is gonna be perfect." Because I think about it now and it's like with my second home birth, I was just like, I felt just was so much more calm, and I feel like you're just so much more in tune with your body than you were the first time. And I think that's just life, right? Like when you experience things, again and again, you just get better at it. And just like with birth, I feel like the same kind of thing happens. Like even if it does go a different way than the first one was, you just are a more confident mom and a more confident woman. And you've grown so much in the year that you had, your first, that you have a lot to, lean on and think about of, in the experiences that have you had, you know?
Absolutely. I love it. I want to dive into finding a midwife because I'm from Canada. So I feel like that is very different and unique from what it is down here. But what is that like finding a midwife that aligns with like the beliefs and processes that you have? And
Mhm.
then for people that are used to maybe having doctor appointments, how does it differ? How is it the same when you have a midwife?
Yeah, so for me, that was when I was picking my midwife for my first home birth. It was really like slim pickings, honestly, because at the time I didn't know very many people that did home births. I wasn't in a community of moms that I am in now, with my second, so it was really hard to find. I would find one. I was fortunate enough, for the women that I did reach out to that had home births, they were able to kind of point me in this direction to a midwifery in my city, which was important to me, for them to be in my community. And I also wanted to consider the drive and stuff like that when I would be visiting them. So that was super important to me. But for my second, I was able to reach out to a few different mamas, and I can, you align also with your friends that, your mama friends that you have similar interests in and similar beliefs. So it was really easy for me to find a midwife the second go around. And the reason why I had to find a second midwife, the second go around was because, my first midwife moved. So from my first home birth. So I was really bummed because I loved her. She was great, but she moved out of state. So I had to kind of start all over with the process, and finding another midwife. And I was fortunate to find her in Redlands, so she was still close. Uh, Unfortunately, Riverside doesn't have a lot of midwives, so but you kind of have to look kind of on the outskirts. So I was grateful to find one in Redlands, and kind of how you do it is you really just go do an interview. You reach out to them and you kind of list with your husband or your significant other all these things are super important to you, and I'm sure something that you would do, I would assume similarly, in the hospital about like your birth plan and what you want it to kind of look like and what it would, and you kind of also come up with different scenarios and how you ask them like how they would handle it. And it really is just, there's no like formula to it. It's really just sitting down and talking with them or even talking to them on the phone. And if you like feel really good after you get off the phone with them, then you should lean into it and you should go for it, or you should go for that another second interview and go for like an in-person. And that's really what I did with both. For my first one, I interviewed kind of over the phone and kind of got the gist of it. And then I asked to go in for an in-person and meet them in person. And again, same kind of thing. You just kind of chat, and it's more of like almost like a respect thing, and where you're, have really good rapport and you're just having really good conversation and you feel really comfortable. I feel like midwives, the relationship between a midwife and their client or their patient is a lot more intimate than a doctor and or an OB, I guess I should say, and their patient, in that like uh, you your appointments are an hour long. So from the get, they're an hour long, and sometimes they go even further if longer if you really wanted it to. They really are just feel like a therapist, and you're going in and they're asking you how you feel, and it's nothing quick. or anything like that. It's very much, which I've heard is different for hospital, right?
Yeah, I think it depends, like, I find sometimes mine are pretty long,
Oh, yeah,
but
see?
I don't know, I really like my clinic and I like my OB, and I don't know,
Yeah.
I feel like it just depends on who you find, because 'cause I've heard of mixed across the board, like,
Yeah.
you never know what you're gonna get sometimes.
Yeah, midwives are pretty, all similar in that it's a really long one, and even towards the end when you're like, "I have nothing to report, I just saw you last week." They're still an hour long, and you're kinda just, like, fiddling your thumbs, at the whole, appointment, but, um, yeah, I feel like I said, the midwives and the way it feels between, like, a midwife and a client feels a lot more intimate, I think, just because of how long the appointment is and how casual they are. Most of the time, they're wearing jeans. Most of the time, you can absolutely bring your baby if you have a second kiddo. It's usually in like a business office, or sometimes they work from home. And so, like I said, it's very much more casual. They're not in like a white coat or anything like that. So, you want to make sure that you have a really good rapport with them. And like I said, there's no foolproof formula on how to pick a midwife. It really just comes down to that, like, you have a really good feeling and you just follow your gut, and just lean again into your intuition, and moving forward with that one. And I was really fortunate enough to have two midwives that were phenomenal. And, you also ask, how many births have they had? And you ask the hard questions, have you had any deaths? Have you had any, emergency transfers? How many of, your transfers were based on an emergency or based on mom just wanting to go, and you ask the hard questions because those things are just as important as, the positive stuff.
Yeah, that's good to know, and I feel
Hmm.
like you have
Yeah.
every right to ask those questions too,
Hmm.
like, you need to know the answers for those.
I feel like those are the scary questions that, like,
Mhm.
my mom wanted to know, and my
Mhm.
parents wanted to know, and Nick wanted to know, I feel like
Mhm.
it's the stuff that sits in the back of, your family members' minds. You're not the birth itself is not, this, like, stone age where you're, like, in the middle of the floor and, there's no medical equipment. I'm sure we'll get to that topic, but I think that that's what a lot of people visualize when they think of a home birth. They think of it just super, um, I guess, I don't know the wording, but yeah, like very like Stone Age, like, like, and it not super clean and whatever. It's just it's different. It's not like that at all. But I'm sure we'll get into that point too of like what it would be like actually at the home birth.
Yeah, so I think that's a great transition because I think that is, like, a question a lot of people have is, like, what is it like actually getting ready to do the home birth? Like, what is it like preparing your house? What is your midwife doing? How I mean, there's so many questions,
Yeah.
but I think just, like, okay, you're coming up on 39 weeks or whatever, like,
Mhm.
what is it like getting your home ready? What is your
Yeah.
midwife doing? How are you mentally preparing
Hmm.
it to do it in your own home? Because it's different, like, my mind goes to, "Okay, I live in an apartment. I live in small space." Like,
Hmm.
or, like,
Yeah.
personally, I wouldn't choose to deliver here, but that's just
Yeah.
because of the situation I'm in. But what
Yeah.
was it like for you just getting ready for the process?
Yeah. So it was kind of nerve-wracking. Second go around was like a piece of cake, but it was very nerve-wracking the first time around because you really wanted to feel really prepared, um, mentally, just as much physically, right? So, like, what not even just physically but physically what you have, like, available at your house, right? So, what it comes down to is around 35 weeks, the midwife will actually come to your house, and they'll do a home visit, and they actually do your appointment at your house. So, they'll check baby, do all the things, but they'll do it at your house, and they kinda walk the space with you, and again, like I said, it's all about mindset when it comes to midwives and preparing your brain and your mind for birth. And they really believe that that has full effect, and rightfully so. It has full effect on how well your birth actually goes. So they want to make sure that your space is a space where it's peaceful, just as much as like the people that plan to be there. So they kind of run through your plan, who is going to be there, and you're welcome to have whoever you want there. Actually, if you really wanted to, you can have a whole, your entire, family, all your family members if you really want to. But it's just basically based on like whatever feels good to you. So they kind of run through your plan. And you show them the space that you want to have the baby in. And if you're going to have a water birth, they actually bring you your pool, and you have like a liner, and the liner goes inside. So obviously everything's super clean. But they bring you the pool for you to have ready and set up, probably closer to like 30, or, 38 weeks. Just have it ready to go, just in case you go into labor early. Um, so they bring you the pool, and then they bring you a bag that has um, pretty much, and that's the kind of thing that people don't really realize, but they bring everything they would need for an emergency besides an operating room. So if they need Pitocin, they bring Pitocin. They bring other drugs and medications and life-saving equipment, and they bring everything in this like go bag, and it is there in the room, ready for them if they were to need it. And they bring sterile stuff too, which they do use during the actual birth. So they bring everything that you were to have in a hospital, but they bring it to your house. Again, besides the operating room, right? If you need to have a C-section, they would obviously transport you. So they do bring that. And then you also just have actually a checklist that they give you that tells you, like, you need 10 towels, and you need trash bags, and you need, rags and receiving blankets. And they give you like a list that you have to kind of collect yourself and have ready to go for that 35-week checkup. And so they make sure that you have everything. And if there's any like last minute little things that you need to get, funny stuff on there is like olive oil. Um, Another funny thing, I know we're on a mom podcast, so I know that they can understand, and it is what it is, but they ask for, for you to bring like a fishing net, like a little like fish net for what you can probably imagine what you're fishing out of, a birth pool, when you are pushing. So funny stuff, but it's the real truth, and it's like the obvious stuff that you're gonna need. Yeah, I know. um, but that's the realness of it, and that's the rawness of it. And it's like I said, it's a really great experience to have midwives that just feel like such like just a beautiful female presence. That's another thing that I just so much enjoy, is just the, female presence of them, and just the way that these women move with so much intention, and to have the experiences that they've had. I mean, I think my midwife, I think, has delivered over 200 and something babies. She's had her fair share, and just the knowledge that they have, and the perspective, and um, it amazes me. I'm honestly, I don't even have the words. It's really just an incredible. If you could ever interview a midwife, that would be cool. The experiences that they have and the knowledge that they have is just phenomenal and amazing.
Well, I love that you said that, because I just think we're in a day now where we're really trying to celebrate women. And that's what I want to do with this podcast too, is like
Yeah.
celebrate women and the amazing things they're doing. And I mean, who knows the female body better than like
Mhm.
a woman herself? And I
Yeah.
just feel like it's really cool that you are able to have that experience
Yeah.
and feel that empowerment. Because it is like when you're around strong women
Yeah.
who are just great people in
And
general too,
confident.
and
Mhm.
confident, and like just great, beautiful people, like
Yeah.
it just is so empowering to be around that. And I could
Mhm.
imagine that that would give you so much strength
Mhm.
in doing a home birth as well.
Yeah. It gives me a lot of, like, mental clarity too, and, you feel safe when you walk into a hospital, even when you're not pregnant, right? Like, something's going wrong, like, that's your first thing to do, is to go to the hospital to get checked to make sure you're okay, and I don't have that feeling of being able to walk into a place to do that. So it has everything to do with the way that these midwives and birth assistants and doulas, the way that they come off, they have to embody that safe place. They have to be the safe place, because there's not really a physical place for us to go to feel that. So the way that these women kind of, like I said, move with so much intention, and the way that they speak, and the way that they kind of breathe encouragement and life, and you can do this type of thing into you when you're in such a vulnerable time, in a vulnerable place. um, you know, it all kind of it all just works out perfectly. And it feels good when you're in that space with them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And kind of moving into like the
Mhm.
actual birth, and you've touched on
Yeah.
like just already a few differences between your first and your second, but
Yeah.
I feel like for me, obviously I was scared going into just your first birth because
Yeah.
you have no idea what to experience. But was there ever a part of you that was scared going into it?
Mhm.
And I think that's a part that really worries like mothers and families about doing a home birth or being or not being in a hospital. Um, but I think just along with that, how did you notice yourself different from your first and your second, if there was a difference?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference and, you know, I think the biggest difference would be that I was not prepared for how fast my birth was. And I was prepared for my second slightly, um, but I was not prepared for my first. So it my birth for my first daughter was start to finish from my water breaking. I had a traditional birth experience where my water broke, and I know that's not everybody's true experience where your water breaks, but I had my water broke, and from the minute my water broke to the time that I had her, it was about a little less than 4 hours. So it was very, 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 very fast, which is also why I'm very grateful that I chose a midwife in my city because I could have gone the route of choosing one from Orange County because there are actually a lot of midwives in Orange County. I think it's really popular out there. LA, those areas, but out this way, there's not as many midwives. But I was very grateful that I picked a midwife local because she was able to get to me quick. And even when she got to me and checked me, she was like, "Oh, girl, you have plenty of time to go. You know, you're only at 1 centimeter." And that's another thing is they don't like to check you as often. Midwives just don't like. They like to be really hands off and let your body do what it needs to do. So she didn't want to check me, but I was like, "No, I want to know where I'm at. So just check me." And so she checked me, and I was at like, she's like, "I can maybe say you're at a 2, but you're more like a 1." And I was like, "Okay." So she left, went home to sleep, and I was like, "Okay." Like, I was good because she assumed that I would as my first baby and to not, have any kind of, um, medication helping me. She assumed that I was going to labor all night, and she's like, "Girl, I'll see you in the morning, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna rest, because you have a long night, and I want you to just, I want you to rest. So close your eyes in between contractions, whatever." I called her, like, less than an hour later, and, the contractions were on top of each other, and so a couple hours later, Sophie was born. So I was not prepared for how fast it was. I think my husband wasn't prepared. I think the midwife was shocked. And I'll never forget when everything was done and settled. I was cozy in my bed with Sophie and, Nick next to me. And she looked at me and she goes, "Natalie," she's like, she goes, "Your birth was like, what is the word?" She said, it was a freight train. And I'll never forget that term because it literally came so fast, so hard, and she's like, "You need to be prepared for your second birth because I can anticipate that you're gonna have fast labors." Well, sure enough, second time around, I was at least prepared that it was gonna be a short, it's called a precipitous birth, and it only affects, I think, like 20% of the women in the United States. So anything less than 6 hours, I believe, is considered a precipitous birth, which is basically like a really fast labor or really fast birth. So I prepared my other midwife, knowing that how that had gone. I told her that it was probably going to be fast this time around because she wasn't there obviously for the first one. So she was prepared, and so Mila came even faster, and she came at like a little around. So she came even faster than her big sister, which again was totally not prepared for. Because I thought at least I would have maybe like 4 hours or 5 hours, but no, she was even less than that. So I think that for me personally, that was the biggest difference between the two. But also the comparison between the two is really like how I wanted my birth space. I think that was a big deal to me the second time around versus the first. I delivered Sophie here at my home the first time around, and going into my second labor, or sorry, not my second labor, but my second birth, I wanted to be in a space that obviously felt safe to me and felt like home. So I asked my mom if I could deliver the baby at her house, mainly because I wanted Sophie to not be affected in the sense of, and a lot of mamas have their babies with them, their kids with them, and watch. I just didn't. It just wasn't part of like my plan. I just didn't feel like I wanted her there. I was like, yeah, she's good. She doesn't need to see all that. She's also 3. So, I felt like it would be a lot for her to kind of process that too. And being her mama, I'm like, I would want to make sure that she's okay. And I feel like I couldn't be in that headspace to comfort her if she was confused or whatever. So I was like, I don't want her life is going to shift so much being a big sister and welcoming a little sister. She doesn't need to, that part, she doesn't need to be around. So I wanted her to just be in her space, not affected if it was at night, not woken up. So I asked if I could deliver at my mom's. So I delivered at my mom's. So I left my house and I went to my mom's and I prepared the birth space at my mom's. So that alone was really important to me, was that Sophie was in her space. The other part of it was music and low lights and I had like twinkling lights like around the outside of the birth pool, and like I know those sound silly, but like it just created just such a beautiful, sweet, peaceful ambiance that I actually didn't really have with my first birth, and that's mainly because of how fast it was. I wasn't prepared. Nick was blowing up the birth pool while I was in contractions. You best believe that when I was at 35 weeks pregnant with the second one, that birth pool was prepared and ready. No water in it yet, but it was blown up and ready to go just in case. So I just feel like I had so much more preparation, and nobody can really prepare you for what's going to happen, but I just felt like the space, I wanted it to be a more peaceful space because I anticipated it, that it was going to be a fast labor, and I wanted the space that I was in to at least feel peaceful and non-chaotic, and that way I could, in the short amount of time that I would know I would have, I could at least get into a headspace of peace and tranquility. And I had um, really beautiful music playing, and it was a really great space. And I feel like that was the biggest difference in terms of the two, was the time.
That's so beautiful, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I just think, it's so nice. I love that you were able to take what you learned from your first and,
Hmm.
like, change it to how you wanted it to be,
Yeah.
because that's, like, the whole point, I feel like, is to have it
Yeah.
exactly what you want. Um, Another question I had during this as well, I was thinking about it, I was like, with my first, I was induced, so I was like, I didn't get an epidural until I think, like, it had been at least, like, 20 hours at the hospital or
Hmm.
something like that, so I just remember, like, the pain and contractions, like, probably 6 hours before that, and being induced is just such a long process,
It is.
but
Yeah.
I am curious to know, how did you handle the pain and just, like, birth in general? Because I was, like, trying to be strong and, like, "I don't want an epidural. I wanna try
Hmm.
to do this naturally," and eventually I was like, "Screw it. I need an epidural right now." Like, I
Yeah.
need this. But what helped you prepare, and how did you handle the pain of, like, a natural birth?
Yeah, so I did, for my first baby, I did a hypnobirthing class. So for Sophie, I did a hypnobirthing class that was actually put on by the midwifery. They offered the class. And so I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Well, let's see what happens. And again, it's all just a lot of like breath work, headspace, pain management, silly things like holding a comb and holding a comb during contraction and kind of redirecting pain is another thing. And then counter pressure. They really like dads to be fully involved, just like dads should be involved all the time. But with midwives, they really like like the husbands to be involved or the partners to be involved. So the hypnobirthing class did a lot of like counter pressure. So Nick knew how to do certain things to help with counter pressure. But I have to not give myself, do give myself credit, right, for the managing the pain, but I also give more gratitude and, you know, I'm more impressed by the moms that do home births that are doing it for such a longer time. Because for me, it was so fast and so short that, and there's pros and cons to that, right? Like, oh yeah, it was a really fast labor, but I'm actually more prone to hemorrhaging. I'm actually, more prone to passing out because of how fast that pain comes on and how strong it is, and how your body kind of has to catch up to what is going on, and it can't sometimes. So, there is, pros and cons to having a fast birth, but the pros for me was that it was so fast that I feel like, mentally, I just had to kind of like get through it. And I think it also comes from like, I was an athlete for about 15 years. And I think I just put myself in the headspace of like, I need to get from, start to finish. And I need to kind of get over that like finish line, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that's an appropriate way to, think about birth, but I guess it's just where my head went of just like, it felt like a competition with myself. It was just more of like, I needed to kind of just go through take each moment as it comes. And my headspace was just like, again, like a competitive mindset of just like, I'm going to finish this. Like, I need to get this done. Like, this is like, I don't know. That's just, I don't know any other way to describe it other than I feel like it just comes from a competitive athletic mind of just like, feeling like it's like a competition or a game with myself of just like, I need to get in this kind of headspace to get through it. And I think that that's kind of what put me through it. And I think also, the counter pressure, the hypnobirthing, listening to worship music. The midwives also do a lot of encouragement, verbal encouragement, and physical, in terms of like they give counter pressure and suggest different positions. You're also able to move however you feel. So if you want to be in the shower, then you can go in the shower. If you want to sit on the toilet, then sit on the toilet. Whatever position is most comfortable for you. I think that that was also a nice feeling of being able to just do whatever the hell you wanted to, in terms of feeling like, in the sense of feeling that, you can do what you want and not feel restricted. That was also a big thing for me, is like, I don't want anybody to tell me what I need to do. I just want to just do what I want to do. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of another one that to be able to allow your body to kind of do what it needs to do, and get in the positions that feel the most comfortable without feeling restricted or refrain, feeling like people are keeping you from doing it or having to kind of argue why you wanted to do it. I feel like that was good too. I was able to kind of get in my headspace and just kind of solely focus. I'm sure if you ask my husband, I don't even know if I talked very much, because you're just, like you're just so focused in your own brain thinking about, the pain and everything else. But yeah, it's the comb, it's the hypnobirthing, it's, the counter pressure, but all it really does come down to mindset and just knowing that you can kind of get through it. And the way that it was for me was putting myself in that athletic headspace of just like athlete mind, and just trying to get through it and cross that finish line of welcoming your baby.
Which is so true. I mean,
Yeah.
all the things that you said, I feel like apply to any way you decide to have your baby. Like,
Hmm.
I remember staring at the clock and being like, okay, I can do
Hmm.
this. I
Hmm.
have done hard things. I can
Hmm.
do this. And
Hmm.
I mean, and you want to meet that baby so bad.
Yes,
So
you're so
you're
ready.
like, okay, I will do whatever I need to do
Whatever it
to get
takes.
this child here.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
which
also
is so
because
fun.
the medication isn't accessible to me, like it is for you. Let me tell you, if I was giving birth in the hospital, I am not going to lie to anyone, and I will not lie on this podcast. I probably would have asked for the epidural. I'm not even going to lie. Because the pain is, and people always ask me like, "Oh, like what's the pain like?" And I'm like, I don't know how to describe it. Also, I was thankful enough to not ever experience I never experienced an epidural. I'm not thankful for that, but I'm grateful that I didn't experience an epidural first with my first baby and then try to home birth for my second. And you could absolutely do that. But I always say, I'm like, well, I don't know any different. I only know this pain, and and it comes so fast, like it comes really fast and it's gone really fast that you're like, oh, the baby's here. And you're so much more focused on that than yourself, the baby, that like the pain kind of just dissipates and it kind of goes away. And you honestly, I think it's God's design, the fact that you actually kind of forget what it feels like.
I know I was trying to remember the other day because I was like, I had really quick contractions, like,
Mhm.
before I got the epidural, and because I was taking whatever I don't even remember what this is, like, such a blur that it is.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't even remember how long it had been, but I was having contractions for, like, 3 hours, and they were, like, back to back, and I was like,
Oh,
"This is terrible." I was like, "This is absolutely terrible."
yeah.
And I was trying to remember, I was like, "What did those feel like?" I can't even remember
It's
what
funny,
it's
isn't
like,
it?
and I'm grateful because then I
Yeah.
want a second and go
Yeah.
through it
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
and people have multiple, and I
Yeah.
think, yeah, it truly is by divine design, like,
Yeah.
we are meant to forget or else there
We
would
are
be
meant
no one on earth.
we are meant to forget, and I think it's funny because, you say that, and I thought the same thing, with my second when I was pregnant, like, around the time that you were, and, you know, I was getting closer to, like, 38 weeks, 40 weeks, and stuff like that with Mila, and I was like I kept texting my midwife, and I was like, "Is this a contraction?" And she's like, "Girl, you've already had, a baby, you know what these contractions feel," and I'm like, I honestly forget, like, is this a and she's like, "You're gonna know," they always say, like, You're gonna know if it's a true contraction or if it's Braxton Hicks." And I'm like, "This is fascinating that I cannot tell the difference, and I had a first. I'm like, I'm a mom already, and I already had a baby, and I went through this already, and I completely forgot what contractions feel like." Sure enough, when the true contractions came, I was like, "Oh, there they are. Oh, I remember them now." But in the moment when you're having Braxton Hicks and stuff, you kinda second guess yourself, and you're like, how do you forget this? But yeah, like you said, like it's literally, the divine design that you literally are meant to forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
How funny.
I know, it is so funny, the human body.
It's crazy. You think
So
that you
crazy.
prepared again. You think that you're this such is life, such is motherhood. You can prepare all you want, but really, really, how prepared can you be?
I know, seriously. For families or mothers that are really thinking about doing a home birth,
Yeah.
what would be your biggest piece of advice that you could give to them?
I think circling back to what I said in the very beginning, which was kind of leaning in to your intuition and following your intuition. And I think I really believe that motherhood your motherhood journey starts the minute you're pregnant and not when you have the baby. And I think that you also have to, like, again, I use the word, like, lean into that and to follow that intuition. And it starts then. It starts when you get pregnant, and you have to do what just feels right for you. And everybody's birth is going to be different. You're going to hear a lot of, different opinions and different perspectives and a lot of outside noise. But I think when you settle in for the night and you are quiet in your own thoughts, I think it really is, you have to just follow what feels right for you and what is meant for you and your family. And you're going to do a lot of that in motherhood. So it's a great preparation to kind of do not the status quo sometimes. And, just like people have strong opinions about hospital births, a lot of people have strong opinions about home births. And I think that uh, however you birth your baby, as long as they get here safely, obviously, that is everybody's main goal. And so I feel like as long as you follow your heart, you lean into your intuition and trust your instincts, that's all that matters. And again, whether that's having you feel safe in a hospital, then have your baby in a hospital. If you feel safe in your own home and to have a midwife, then do that. And there's so many other directions you could go. You could have midwifery care and then birth at a hospital. There's midwives at at hospitals now. So there's so many different avenues. It's not black and white. And I think that, like I said, not listening to outside noise is my best advice. And just, you know, really advocating for yourself and what feels good to you and what brings you the most peace. And yeah, leaning into the intuition and whatever and wherever it's meant to lead you.
That's so great, and I love how you just wrap it into, like, all of motherhood because
Yeah.
I mean, it is the moment, like, I feel like the moment you are, like or for me anyways, it was when we started trying. I was like, "Okay,
Mhm.
here we go." Like
Yeah.
this new phase, and obviously you're pregnant, and I found for myself it was really hard to like connect with the fact that I was going to be a mom. But
Yeah.
then yeah, when it came, it was like, "Okay, I'm a mom." And but I noticed while I was pregnant, like I was making these decisions for myself that would best suit for us as a family, and it just is so crazy, like just the process that you go through, and
Yeah.
becoming a mom is just a wild
It
journey.
is a
And
wild ride, and it starts the minute you get pregnant.
mhm,
And nobody really prepares that pregnant mom for that, you know? And I think that that's what it is that the minute you get pregnant, you hear all the outside noise. And it really comes down to when you're in your own thoughts, in your own safe place, um, what feels the best for you and to just lean into that and to, everybody mothers differently. Everybody mothers differently. And that is the best way, right? The way that you mom your baby, the way that you are a mom to your baby is the best way, and the way that I am a mom to my baby is the best way. Everybody does it differently, and it's definitely taking in everybody's opinion and then picking and choosing what works best for you and in your family and your dynamic.
absolutely. And it's so true. Like what works best for you
Mhm.
might not work best for me. And I think that's
Mhm.
the beauty in motherhood as well, is
Yeah.
just accepting that. I think I used to spend so much energy before just being a parent, but just in life in general, thinking, "Oh, well, she's doing this, like I should be doing that." Or
Yeah.
I'm not at that place in my life, should I be there? Or
Yeah.
am I just questioning like things that I would do? Whereas now, I think just now that like my son's here, I'm pregnant with my second, I definitely
Yeah.
have more confidence in
Yeah.
who I am as a woman, who I am as a mother. And obviously there's still things like I second guess and question if I'm going to ruin him forever,
I
but
know. I know. That
but I
doesn't go
think
away.
but I think there's things where I'm like, "No, I'm really confident in the fact that like we are doing this as a family and this
Yeah.
is what works best for us."
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I think just coming to peace with that, and when you bring a baby into the world with that kind of peace, there can be no better, right? There can be no better space for them is to feel your peace coming into the world, and, I think that's what's most important, and obviously, you cannot predict the unknown, and situations happen and life happens, and I easily could have been transferred, and guess what? I would have been just as happy because that baby is safe and healthy, and I think that there's a stigma out there that, you know, you can't, if you're home birthing, then you don't support hospital births. If you're hospital births, then you don't support home birthing, and I think that that is so far from the truth. I think that um, we all just do what's best for us and what feels good. That's what we're meant to do. Meant to do things that feel good to us. And in a world where we have so many outside of opinions in motherhood and so many different influences and stuff, I think it's important for us to kind of stay rooted and follow what feels good.
Yeah, and in the end, we all just want happy, healthy
We
babies.
just
That's
want happy, healthy
all.
babies.
That's all
That's
we
all we want.
want.
That's all we want. And however you get your baby here is the best way.
Yeah,
However you do it. It doesn't matter if you do a home birth, if you do a mix of it, if you do a hospital birth, if you have a C-section, if you choose to have a C-section. It's you doing whatever feels good to you and is right for you, and the safest way is the most important.
absolutely. My final question for you
Yeah.
is, in this wild journey of motherhood, how have you grown as a woman?
Mm, it's a good question. I think again, I know I've touched on this already a couple of times, but I think that's just me, and it's feeling confident in my choices for my family and for the things that I do with my children. And I like to always say to my husband that I need to take a page out of his book because it's fascinating how men can just totally not care at all what other people think. And females are just so different in that sense where they just are like, well, what about this? And I think social media plays a part of that too, negatively, in that you see other moms doing so many different things and you feel like you need to do all those things too. And I think that the most growth I've made, I think, is being confident in myself as a mom and the choices that I've made and, sticking up for myself. And I think also in the same turn, I think choosing, you know, to do things that make me happy and that bring me joy, even if it's not meant to be selfish. I think it is important for us to find moments where we do things to fill our own cup, right? Because we can't pour from an empty cup. And I think that a lot of moms run at, 50%, 60%. And again, how can you pour from an empty cup? And you just can't. So do things that fill your cup. And I think I try to lean into that more too, is filling my cup with, surrounding myself with friends and doing things for myself. Even if it's just going to get my nails done, like that makes me feel good, and away from the girls for a little while. And yeah, I think knowing that it's okay to do things for yourself and to take time for yourself, because that all that means is that you're able to come home and pour into your children even more when you do things for yourself and you come home more happy and confident. And then, yeah, just being more confident in, um, I've grown in being more confident with my choices with my girls.
So great. I love it. It's just so amazing to hear another mom and your story and just get your pieces of advice and your little tidbits. It's been really
Yeah,
great. So thank you so much.
of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
I know. I could talk forever with
I
you.
know, I could too. I'm glad we're cutting it off because we'd be up till midnight, I'm sure.
Thank you so much for Natalie for sharing her personal birthing stories. It is a powerful reminder that women are capable of so many great things. If you have a birth story that you would like to share, or any other stories, I would love to hear them. Thank you again for Natalie, and thank you for all of those that continue to support and listen. See you next time.